Hi everyone, welcome to Do You Believe on LIVESCIFI.tv. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. Well, we have a wild show tonight. I have a good friend of mine, Anita Jo Intenzo, who has written the book A State of Horror, and she is now known as the Haunted Author, and she is going to tell us her haunting story from the time she started writing this book, how her paranormal activity has just escalated. And this is, I want to show you her book. This is A State of Horror. And now we are going to welcome Anita to the show. Everybody, let's all welcome Anita. Hi, Anita. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Noreen. Thank you for having me this evening.
Oh, it's a pleasure. And I am so excited because, I'm sorry that you have all this paranormal activity, but you have a story that I have never heard from anybody before. And our conversation the other day, I could have talked with you for hours. And it's so amazing what you have been going through. Now, there are some viewers that probably have not read your book or know anything about your book, and I'm just going to show them a little picture of it. So before we start the show and go into what's been happening with you, could you please tell the viewers how this all started? So let's talk a little bit about the book.
Well, as you know, Noreen, when I was on your show several years ago, we pretty much covered a lot of the background, but the story started in 2009 when my friend who had asked me to be executor of his estate passed away suddenly, and I was left to continue and fix with the will and go through to execute the different parts of the will. And then, I had to go into his house and see what state it was in, to start cleaning out the house for a sale. And as we were cleaning out the house, the number of months we were involved in the property, it started to be with poltergeist activity. So that was very, very surprising. We did not know what we had stepped into, and it's been a paranormal journey ever since.
And it's escalated. So because now that it is escalated, you and your son are now going to write a sequel to this book. And what's the sequel?
The sequel is going to be called Dark Transference, and it leaves off, where we have the first book leaves off, this is a continuation of what happened after my friend's estate was settled, and we brought into my house a number of artifacts that he had left to me in his will, and these were all types of artifacts from around the world. He was an anthropologist, and I did not know at the time when I brought these objects into my home that we would then start a haunting in my house. So that was very, very frightening, and we did not expect it. We had been through such a traumatic experience at my friend's house for over 5-6 months, and we thought we were finished with all of it when the house was finally sold to contractors, and they gutted the house, and then it was resold to people. And since the house has been sold over 4 years ago, we haven't really heard anything disconcerting about how the house is. It seems like the people don't have any problems with it, and we figured because we had directed so many of the objects and things into my house, then we brought over the problems that were in that house and then now transferred over into my house. And it's been very, very, very incredible, and I never dreamed it was going to continue, even until today.
Exactly. Now, Anita, you told me something that I couldn't believe. You are now getting ghost gifts. Now, Anita will tell you the story. She has been getting ghost gifts from the dead. And Anita, would you like to explain? Now, I have pictures. Anita sent me over the pictures, but Anita, do you have those near you so you could also actually show them to the viewers?
Yes. I thought maybe the photos would be clearer on the screen. Let me see what I can do, Noreen. I have them in an envelope here, but if, I would like to see how they look up on the screen,
Oh.
if they're clearer for the viewers.
Oh, okay.
To see.
Okay,
So
well-
should we see what one of them looks like,
Yeah,
maybe?
yeah, yeah, so, okay, this is the first one that Anita received, and this was in October of 2012.
No, 2010, Noreen. That was October 20th, 2010, hon.
Oh, what did I say? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm looking at, I know, yeah, okay, October 2010, you're right. And now, do you want to go into a little bit more as to how, where do you think the threads are coming from?
Okay, the first thread, oh, great, that looks really great, Noreen. That's much better than if I were showing that from my vantage point, hon. This is very thin blue threads. They started just out of nowhere. My son was looking at his art table, and there were several of these thin, straight blue threads lying on top of some of his paint jars, because he's an artist and he paints models. And he asked me, Mom, were you over here sitting near my table? Because I found some threads, and he thought maybe I had been doing some sewing, and I left maybe little remnants of what I was working on. And when I looked at the threads he showed me, I didn't recognize them. I said, Chris, I said, they are very fine, and they don't look like any type of threads that I have in my sewing box. These look very unrefined and very silky. So they were, as I said, just very long threads. And I didn't throw them out in the trash basket that night. I left them on my coffee table that evening, and then I said, well, for some reason I just didn't want to get rid of them, and I left the threads on the table. The next morning when I came down, I saw something blue on my carpet, and my carpet's like a darker brown tone, so these light blue threads showed up really well. But when I picked them up, Maureen, I was so stunned because the threads had been woven, as you say. I could not believe it. And I called down my son. He was upstairs, getting out of bed. I said, you won't believe those threads that you showed me last night. And he said, are they the same threads? And I said, yes. Look what happened to them. And I showed them to a friend of mine who has a collection of Victorian mourning jewelry. And when she first saw this and the other threads, she said, this looks very like fine work that people used to do back in the 1800s during the Victorian times, when they would take the hair of loved ones and weave them into like lockets, make jewelry, bracelets. But this was the first of many. We have 10 of them, Noreen, that your viewers, and if they want to see some others. But this was the first one, very light blue, and it was woven into that loop pattern. So that was pretty extraordinary.
Okay, now I do have a picture of Victorian hair art, and they also used to call it mourning hair, mourning, mourning. And the Victorian era, they would clip hair from a loved one, and then they would weave it or sew it into some kind of bracelet or in a locket or in flowers, and that's a keepsake. So let me show them a picture, because it kind of resembles what your ghost gifts are, and you can see how they've how the different ways they've sewn them and weave them. All right, so Anita, let's go on to the second one you received.
Okay.
And this one is this one is November of 2011.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was about almost a year later. The first one I received, I thought, well, that's the Victorian jewelry. It shows you some of the typical weaving designs that people did.
Mm-hmm. And let's go on to the other one.
Okay.
This one is of December 2011. Now this one's a little...
one or two within a short amount of time. Yeah, that one was found the 11th on November 30th, 2011. I hadn't received any for almost a year, and my little notation at the bottom just mentions that where this blue, extremely intricate piece was found was only about 8 feet away from the first blue thread that was found, a year before. And so it was all in the living room. And that next one, that appeared within maybe several weeks, or only about, actually within only 4 days. That was on my step, my carpeted step to go up to my second floor. And I was sweeping my rug, and as I was sweeping the step, this just happened to be right on the step, and I was so glad that I hadn't swept it up. But it was like right for me to see, that I would be able to find it right away. And I just knew that it had to be a feminine presence that was leaving me these threads, because you just immediately thought that it had to be a woman or some kind of female that was making these things. But that's why it's up for the viewers tonight. I've never seen anything like this, and I'm just a person who has been very, I watch for these things if they do appear in the house, but you always make sure that they are in my line of vision, that I'll be able to find them, and that's what's pretty extraordinary.
It is extraordinary. I told you I Googled and searched, and I could not find anything about ghost gifts or anything like this. Now, I noticed that the first 3 are blue. Now here, this one looks like a black or a dark brown. This one is April 2012.
Okay. But yeah, they started changing colors because the first 3 were blue. That's right.
And so where are the strings coming from?
I do have threads and other types of little sewing materials that I keep in containers down in the basement, where I have some other sewing pieces. But what was very unusual is that these threads, that's the most recent one, Noreen. That's the one that was left for my son. That was like a dark brown or black. That's our most recent. That was April 16th, 2015.
Oh yeah, I had it labeled wrong. I see that.
But that's okay, because it just shows the range of how many years this has been going on. But this was really unique because my son lives 3 blocks away, and he and his wife found these threads on their bedroom floor the next morning, and he called me and he said, "Mom, guess what? The lady was over here and she left a present." And as soon as I saw it, I knew it had to be the same woman, because all the threads had that same common loop pattern. They look very similar.
That one seems to be. Well, there is another one that's more intricate and with the little loops that it's really almost perfect. But let me show this one here, the red one. Now this one is like they didn't have time to finish it.
Yeah. Yeah, the red one. Yeah. I know what you mean.
Okay, and then we have another one. Let's see. This one, it's hard to read from my program. This one I think is, it's February 23rd, 2013. Mm-hmm. And this one is really small.
Yes. But there's several that were purple. My son, now that's the red one, Noreen. That was, what was so unusual, the red thread, we knew it was a red cotton thread only because my son had a brand new t-shirt, and it had a really long thread on the hem, and he cut it off. I didn't know this at the time, and placed it in the wastepaper basket in the upstairs bathroom. And 3 days later, when I went into the bathroom, it was on our windowsill, and I noticed it looked like it had been worked. And I said, "Chris, have you seen this? Where did this red thread come from?" He says, "You know what's weird, Mom? That's the same red thread I threw in the wastepaper basket, and it looks like it was taken out and somebody tried to knit with it." This one, Noreen, that you're showing is the a purple one that was actually on the countertop in the bathroom, and that's, as my son took a picture with his cell phone right when he found it, that it was on the top of the countertop in the bathroom.
Crazy. Now, okay, now this one here, you've got 2 dates on here. It's let's see, ghost threads found Sunday, April 7th, 2013, and then found on the same step as another place in 2011. Explain that one.
Yeah, that's the black, I call it the eternity knot. There's a black thread that has an eternity knot in the middle, and that was also found on the steps going up to my second floor. Yeah, that's the one, Noreen. Yeah, that was very similar what step we found it on as the blue thread that was several years before that. So and my son found that on the Sunday. He called me. I was at my mom's taking care of her because she was very ill, and he said, "Mom, I found another thread on the step." So it didn't have to be me being at the house that she was leaving me these things. Even if I wasn't there, she still was leaving gifts that my son was finding.
Oh my God. Okay, here's one from March 26, 2013.
Yeah, that was Palm Sunday, the other one.
Oh, really? And then we've got one lot. Now this one I really find interesting. This one's August 1st of 2013. This
that
one
was a really big, that's the big one. That was a long, about 12-inch piece.
Yeah, that one is really, now this one is completed and it's long, but the little circles are almost perfect.
Oh, that's another, that was, let's see, that's at 5/26, 13. That was in last May. That was outside my studio here, the white one. That was the first time I found a white, little woven thread. And, I think that's the one, that's the big one, from August 1st, 2013. That was right outside my door. And what was so unusual is my daughter-in-law went to work 8 o'clock in the morning, and it wasn't outside the door. And an hour later, when I was up having breakfast and went to go get the paper, this was outside the door. And when I asked my daughter-in-law when she came home from work, did she see that by any chance outside when she went to work? She said, "No, Mom, I've never seen that before." She said, "That was outside?" She said, I left this morning, I did not see anything, outside the door. So that was like it was left for me. And it's very unusual, Noreen, because you see almost like a box stitch in the very center, and then it's all loosely woven, on the ends.
I know, it's amazing. Now, do you know what was going on before and after, or actually probably before you received any of these ghost gifts? Was there anything happening? Was there any deaths, any illnesses, anything like that, anything tragic happening before you received these ghost gifts?
Well, the only thing I could really remember back when I started getting the ghost gifts, that was in 2010. It was only maybe the following 6 months. My dad was very ill, and then he passed away in hospice. He had Parkinson's and was ill for about 5 months. So, I didn't really relate that incident of getting ghost threads to, somebody being ill or had passed away. But it's really unique that so many ghost threads appeared last year. I would say the majority were concentrated last year, and that's when my mom was very, very ill, and then she passed away in September of 2013. So in some ways, this is more like a comforting type of thing. I think that's been left for me. And we now think that it's a woman from the Victorian times that is a resident ghost here, and she has been made known to us through one of our medium friends, and named her Marjorie, that she took care of children here in the home. She was either a governess or a caregiver, and the medium told me that she's very connected to me because I also do handwork and took care of my parents and do a lot of antique restoration. So there seems to be, that could be something connection. But also, she was actually seen at my front door. The woman was described to me by a caregiver who drove by my home last year. I think it was around May or June, and it was Sunday morning around 10 o'clock, and this caregiver then told me a few days later, because I didn't see her that Sunday when she was taking care of my mom. I went later in the day to take over the duties, and then she called me a few days later, and she said, you know, I went by her house and I saw a woman at your front door, and she had a high neck blouse. It looked very antique, and her hair was up in like sort of Gibson style hairdo, and it was gray. She said she wasn't a young woman, she was an older woman, and that's exactly what's been described to us by our medium friend, Laurie, who's been here at least a half a dozen times, and she's a very benevolent spirit, and it's really a unique and incredible connection to have with a spirit who's leaving these things for you. So in a way, I feel very privileged that she wants to leave me these things.
Have you tried on purpose just leaving threads all over the house, like maybe a lot of them in different colors, to see if she would do anything with it?
We haven't. We've done it where we found maybe just some plain thread, and we just would leave it. And my daughter-in-law suggested the same thing, that maybe she would do something with it. But what was really strange that you just mentioned, I hadn't received any gifts from her lately, and when I sent it to her, 2 days later my son called me, and he got the other, that one from April 16th, that he called me, said, Mom, she left me a gift. And I said, well, I just asked her recently, you haven't left anything lately, and here, she left it for my son.
Now, Anita, also, you inherited these artifacts from South America. And
Yes.
Would you repeat again what your friend was doing?
Yes, my friend was an anthropologist, and he did a lot of studying in South America. He was a Mayan Indian expert, and he had been to Mexico, the Yucatan Peninsula, Peru, and a lot of artifacts were left to me, and we didn't realize it at the time that when we brought these things back to my home, and they were in the basement, this was like a collection of maybe spirits were attached, because we had no idea what we brought into the house until we started seeing poltergeist activity, things being thrown around the room. My actual living room at one point was ransacked with pillows and Afghans and newspapers and magazines just thrown all around the living room. My son was walking down the hallway, and he had a handful of paper clips just thrown right in his face. That was really, he was terrified, and we went out of the house that afternoon. We didn't even want to pick up the things that were being thrown around the house, and we left for an hour or two, but then when we came back, we still had to put everything to where it had to be put back, and that was just some of the things. We've been getting activity in the house, and what we're understanding from our research now, it's the quality and the types of items that we actually have had from my friend's home, and they're really varied, and American Indian, South American, we have Roman, Greek, Egyptian statues, and I have the mummy doll that you had asked me to send you a picture of.
I'm gonna
we do have activity as far as high readings on an EMF meter that have spiked near this mummy doll.
So, what do you think this mummy doll? It's extremely haunted, and is it causing any havoc in your house, or did it bring in any bad negative spirits with it?
I think it's basically on its own. It has a high reading, and it is made of materials that are at least 800 or more years old. The dolls were made in the 1950s. My friend bought this doll when he was in Peru. They were made by the Cuchera Indians, the more modern Indians too. I guess they were the descendants of the Incas. And what they did is made these cloth dolls. Now that's a really good picture because you can see the baby, and I have it also here. This was in a box with some other artifacts, and when Laurie and her investigative team came to the house, they brought their equipment, and they were wondering why they were getting a really high reading near the box. And when we took out the mummy doll, it's really spiked up about 2-3 points, and then it would go back down. And even though the doll itself is made from like the 1950s. The actual cloth that's on the skirt and it's wrapped around the baby, these are authentic wrappings that came from mummies in from 650 AD from what they're dated. And apparently these Indians had access to this tomb areas and were making these for souvenirs to be sold to people that came to Peru. But now you can't buy these. You can you can get them on the internet if they're sold from a collector, but as far as exporting them from Peru, they don't do that anymore. So my friend had bought this in the early 70s when he was down in Peru, way before they enacted the law where you can't sell mummy wrappings and things from tombs now. You have to be very careful. But yeah, she's given off different readings, and when I've moved her around in the house, we'll have maybe more banging sounds or some unusual just rustling noises and that's why I put her back down in the basement. I'd rather have her in one spot than moving her around the house. So, yeah, but it's been crazy, and we do have some high energy readings from some other artifacts also, and it's created probably a portal here in the house, and we've gotten an EVP, which unfortunately through no fault of Noreen's, she can't get it to play on tonight's show. But if anyone would be interested in listening to a really very raspy and almost a demonic type of voice that's on this EVP that I picked up in February of 2010, I can let you have an email address through my website, and you can ask me and I will send you the wave cloud file. I think it's called a wave file, and you can click on it and you would hear like the, I think, 15-second part that we isolated of the EVP if they would like to hear that.
Now, Anita, also you told me about this object that you can't find in your basement, and it's UFO alien connected. I'm going to show the viewers that object. You want to talk about that?
This is the first time this is being shown on any kind of national network or on the internet, because this is something that we are going to be investigating further, and we have some really serious work to do with this, because it is not something that you fool around with.
Okay, I'm showing it to them now. Can you explain the object to them?
Yeah, I'll do that, sure. The object that Noreen's going to show is an actual drawing. Yeah, you see that pretty well on the screen, Noreen. That's really good. It was drawn by Laurie Hall, who is a well-known and very well-respected psychic medium who helped us in 2009 when we were at my friend's estate. And that's, it's in the book. On chapter 31, there is a long chapter telling about this incident where they came to help us to cross my friend over. My friend did not want to leave. He was earthbound at his home. It was causing a lot of activity, a lot of frightening experiences. We were thrown to the ground. My son was attacked. We had a lot of just very strange noises going through the place, and we really thought that they just wanted us out of there. They did not want us to sell the house, but we had to. That was part of their will. But in chapter 31 in my book, The Estate of Horror, this object was drawn by Laurie Hall, and she did not expect to even draw this. We were just concerned with a spirit that needed to be crossed over. And when she told us, she said, we're not through with any of this, Anita, because I'm getting an image in my mind and I'm going to draw it if you have paper and pencil. So I gave her that. She started drawing this and started jotting down some notes. She said, there's an object that your friend collected when he was in Peru. And she said, it's very high energy. She said he was never meant to have this, but he bought this from a farmer who apparently dug it up near either a cemetery or near some tombs, and this farmer found it on his property. And my friend and his family, who were of some substantial means, they could afford to buy all kinds of artifacts and artwork, and they bought this from the farmer, and he did not know what he had bought. But apparently what we learned from Laurie and her investigative team, Laurie said to me, Anita, this is not of this earth. She said, this is an alien artifact. And my son and I just looked at her like, are you crazy? Like, what are you talking about? We don't want to get involved with this. But she said, well, this is what is some of the things you've collected. It is of an unusual shape, and it changes its shape because it does not want to be found. Your friend didn't know what he had, but it was high energy, and this could have caused possibly his early death. He died at 55 of a sudden heart attack. Now, we don't have any proof of that at all, but he was very ill the last few years of his life that he did not tell people, and we don't know if this was part of it, where this energy in the house created portals and caused a lot of the haunting, but it's really a strange piece. Laurie said she's never seen anything like it, but apparently MUFON has identified this as an object they've seen before. There's only maybe one or two in existence that they've ever seen before or drawn, and we're looking into this now with the UFO investigators, and we have some other people that will be coming to investigate the basement. We are not sure where this thing is. We've been looking for it, and it just seems to change a shape, that it comes into like a common type of shape that people would like not recognize and say, oh well, it's just maybe a coin, or it's into some other shape. And I know how crazy this sounds, but believe me, we don't know, what this is and why. My friend had it, but we're going to try to see if we can get to the bottom of it, because we can't have this kind of thing in the house because it's causing a lot of paranormal energy and problems.
Now, what about these coins, these foreign coins that are being thrown in your house, coming from the ceiling and walls?
Yeah, we've had foreign money that's materialized out of thin air, hit against walls when you least expect it. We've had it drop through the ceiling, but we had German Deutschmarks from the 1940s and 50s that at one point I had a client in my art studio, and as she was talking to me about this project we were working on, all of a sudden we heard this metallic clang and like bang, 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 and she just looked at me. She goes, oh, yeah, that's a sample of a German Deutschmark. As you can see, let's see, that is one from 1960. That's just a one from the 60s. They don't even use that anymore because it's now euros. But that's an example of the type of Deutschmark that was thrown. It's more made of like aluminum. They're not real heavy, but they can make a really loud sound when they hit up against the plaster wall. So the Deutschmark was some of the things thrown, which I identified with my friend and his family because they were German and they had survived World War II. But then also Noreen has some other pictures of Nazi paraphernalia that also came across at my friend's house. And it gets more and more sinister of the really crazy things that went along with the discovery of these German Nazi pins. So
I'm showing the the picture with the Nazi pins. Are those all Nazi pins on there, Anita?
Yeah, there's 4 Nazi pins that I came in possession. They are all dated from the 1930s, the middle of the 30s, at the beginning of the Third Reich when Germany had elected Hitler. The pins, from what I've been able to identify, they are all from different rallies that were held by the Nazi Party in different parts of Germany. And these all came from my friend's father, who I did not know was a member of the Nazi Party, had been in the Navy. And now that we are learning, we have a researcher going to the archives in Washington, D.C., and searching to see that he possibly had a connection with the SS. So that was totally surprising. We also found some other military pictures, which I am not able to disclose right now, but we did see him in his uniform. The Nazi swastikas on all the pins there. There's one particular one with a boat that belonged to the father because he was in they called it Marine, the German Navy, but also he was involved in with a group that was from different branches of the military into a collective group to gather intelligence and to do spy work and other types of just to be guarding the party members and to see if anybody's going to be a traitor. So there's some real serious things that looks like the father was involved in, and possibly explain some of the really violent nature of the poltergeist activity that we found, and we're part of at my friend's house.
Now, didn't you did you tell me that you got an EVP from somebody, a male voice, and you thought it might have been the father?
Yes. The father had, he had a cane, and at one point we got an EVP, and it was in the kitchen. We had left our recorder, and it was pretty incredible because he was emphasizing that, do you hear me? That he banged, it sounded like a cane against the floor, and banged the cane and said, so-and-so. And I changed the name, so I'm just going to say, we call him Hans Jaeger in the book, but he actually said Hans Jaeger and banged his cane, which was his real name. He actually used his real name, but I can't use his real name. So it was like he's letting us know, do you hear me? And I'm banging for emphasis with a cane. Also, there was very distinctive cursing at us and some other things of saying getting out of the house. They wanted us out of the house.
Okay, so this was at your friend's house when you were cleaning everything up?
Yes.
Okay, has he come over into your house now that the paraphernalia is at your house?
We have our medium here. My friend has passed on, but we have the signs where the father not over. He does not want to go to the light. He does not want to face retribution and justice for possibly what he did when he was in World War II. So we actually got a verification that he was at our house now, and the medium was quite worried because he was singling me out to say that he's not going anywhere. He's going to stay right here. And our medium was attacked by him, that when she was in the basement, she was so scared and frightened when she came up from the basement. In fact, I was down there with the team. She said, Anita, go upstairs right now. You are in danger. And I did not even argue with her. I went straight upstairs. And then she came up about 20 minutes later and she said, he said to me, if you better stop asking me questions. I'm going to hurt Anita, or if you ask me questions. And he tried to strangle her. So she had red marks around her neck that he wanted her to stop asking questions and stop recording, evidence down the basement that he was there.
Oh,
he didn't want it to be known that he was there.
Oh my God, do you feel threatened at all from this fella?
Well, I'll tell you, it was really frightening. Having my son and his wife living here was really good because we weren't in the basement very much. We avoided that at all costs. But then we had Mr. Bill Bean, who is a minister who came to the house last year and was able to confront some of the really dark energy. But as you know, Noreen, from me talking with you a few days before, we have such a layers of haunting here. I'm built on the property of an 1800 farmhouse, and there was already some things maybe here dormant, but when I brought all the artifacts in from my friend's house, then it created a lot more of a really struggle between good and evil, I guess, because what I brought in with these artifacts unknowingly, I did not know there would be anything attached to these objects. It created a real war of what's going on with these spirits in the house. And as you know, Noreen, what I pointed out too, we've seen shadow people. We've seen handprints of demonic nature.
Okay.
They're not human handprints that were on our glass coffee table and on our mirrors. So that's why we called Bill Bean, and he came and helped us out with getting rid of some of this negative energy in the house.
I'm showing that picture now with the paw prints or some kind of prints on the. It's a mirror. Now, when you saw this on the mirror, is it possible that anybody else in the house could have done that?
That's the first thing I tried to figure out. I asked my son, and at the time my son wasn't married and his wife wasn't even living here with him, so it would have been just my son, but he doesn't use the mirror, the vanity mirror down here in the powder room. He only uses the bathroom upstairs. That's a really good picture that you could see. That was some of the first handprints that we found on. It's a 3-pound mirror, and the center mirror, you open from underneath. There isn't any handles right on those panels. So first I saw 2 fingerprints, and then I didn't really think anything of it, and then I started seeing more and more. So I just left them and I showed them to my son, and he said, "No, Mom, I didn't open that cabinet." And he said, "They don't look human to me." He said, "Look how weird. They actually look like small fingerprints of a child, and then these bigger prints." And then a friend of mine who's a photographer came over one day and I showed them to her, and she said, "These look really kind of skeletal. They don't even look like real human fingers." So we photographed that, and that was some of the things that Bill was able to see. And it also said, "Well, after you photograph this, Anita, you got to wipe these fingerprints off, because this is a portal they're using to make some of these some of this activity in your house."
So
that was like, first we saw it on the mirror, and then we had a handprint on our glass coffee table, and that was really crazy too.
So when you discovered these, was your immediate thought to call Bill Bean and have him come over?
Well, I did not know Bill at the time. All I did was, which I'll tell you, thank God for Facebook at some points, because Facebook can be a really great lifeline for people who are looking for a particular type of help. So I actually posted up the fingerprints and the glass coffee table fingerprints, and I had someone get a hold of me from Elements Beyond, a very well-known group of people that actually go after this type of unusual activity, and she got in touch with me and she said, "Look, these are not good. You have to do something about this, Anita, if they're leaving prints like this." So I said, "Well, what do I do? The investigators have been here. They are not people to confront anything that would be demonic." So she said, "Well, I'm going to get in touch with Bill Bean and have him get in touch with you and see if he can come." And that's how I met Bill Bean last year of March of 2013. And within a matter of a day or two, he got right back to me and made the appointment and came to my house for the first time and was able to help us out, with that type of entity that we were dealing with.
Wow. And he also acknowledged that it was a demonic entity?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, he had seen things like that before. And the prints that we showed him from our photographs, and we left it on the coffee table until he could see it, and then he told us to wipe it off. So what I did was I got the picture of it, and then he said to me, he said, "I don't just see, let's say, an adult handprint. There's actually 2 sets of adult handprints and one of a child's in between." And when he pointed that out to us, we could see 3 sets of handprints. So he was very worried that there could have been something like a child or something else being bothered here, or maybe being kept from moving on. And there was this horrible, crazy thing. So.
All right. So let's one last thing. The shadow. You have a shadow person that you've seen, and I captured. You want to talk about how I captured that picture of the shadow man? I'm going to show it now.
I'm so glad you were able to capture that for us. We did a book trailer about 2 years ago in July, and it was a very hot evening, about 6 o'clock in the evening till 12 o'clock at night. And we had our film crew here to do a video, and we just, normally just set up the cameras, the lighting outside the house, and we're shooting inside. And after the video was shot, our producer, Bill Hefferty, who is now out in California with his partner, Jack, they were editing for a 2.5-minute video. And he said, "Anita, I've got to show you some of the beginning of the trailer, and maybe you can see what I'm saying, because it's really strange." So when I saw the first 10 seconds of the video, that is terrific. That is like the best thing that you got copied. Wow, that was great, Maureen.
Oh, thanks.
You got that.
I'll send that, yeah.
That is a terrific still that you got for that. Our door is opening, and it's a white panel door, and we captured this man with a brimmed hat, and right before that, there's an EVP barking of a dog, and what my son then told me later, I did not know this, but he had a dream. He's become very psychic, my son, since our trauma at my friend's house, and this man in a brimmed hat with overalls, and he had a black dog with red eyes by his side, and the man told him he had lived here in the 1900s, he had murdered his wife, and he went to jail for murdering his wife. So we checked the county records in our township here, And indeed, there was a man in the 1900s who murdered his wife on his property, went to jail. And people remember, just describing him as a farmer, wearing overalls and a straw-brimmed hat, and he always had a big black dog by his side. And my son knew that it had to be something connected to the property. And we had seen the shadow man in our hallway before they even captured this on film. But this is really a terrific verification and validation for us, knowing that we saw this in our hallway, and he shows up on our trailer. Very unexpected.
Yeah.
Really creepy.
Oh,
We got, our director had chills. He said, I cannot believe what we captured. And he told us later, they had their own experiences. They didn't want to say anything, but they had these Velcro bags that were ripped open with their camera equipment, and they were just they said somebody was like fooling around with the stuff. Things seemed to be, would be in one spot and then it would be over on another spot, and really, really crazy. So
awesome. We can take a couple questions if anybody has any questions for Anita. Otherwise, we've got to end the show. Our time is almost up. Hi, Karen. Karen Fry, one of my followers. Anybody have a question? I can take a couple questions for Anita. We're on a delay, so just gotta wait a couple seconds here.
sure.
I don't see anything coming up. Whoops. Oh, thanks, Karen. Okay, everybody. Anita, thank you so much for sharing your information. I know this is the first time you've shared this with anybody, and I really feel privileged that you did that on my show. I love it. Thank you. And and for all those you watching, Anita will be on. Will be on 3 television shows telling her story, and she'll be sharing this information as well, but she did it first on my show, and she'll announce and she'll send me the announcements on the shows that she will be on. I know what they are, but I can't say. And good luck with that, Anita. I can't wait to see what they put together with all your artifacts and stuff that you have, and the story, the fabulous story that you have. I can't wait to see it on television. And good luck with your second book. And when the second book comes out, I would love to have you and your son back on, because I know you gave me information about your son that you probably don't want to talk about right now. And when the book comes out, I'm sure that information will come out in the book, and it's fabulous. I mean, I when you were telling me, I just couldn't believe it. It was fabulous, and I wish you all the best with your upcoming book.
Well, thank you, Noreen. I'll tell you, you were the first people who believed in me, and I can't ever thank you enough for that validation. And the book has been a wonderful. It's just doing so well on the internet with Amazon and Kindle. And if people want to go to my website, www.estateofhorror.com, you can follow the links there to, if you want to purchase the book or read about more of the story. And also, I write a weekly blog. So if you go on my Facebook page for Anita Jo Intenzo or A State of Horror, I usually have links up there about the newest blog I've put up, and it has a lot more information about some of the subjects that we talked about tonight, Noreen, the Shadow Man, about the threads, that can give them a little bit more of a background if they'd like to read up on that too.
Right. And that interview that I did with you in 2012 on the book, I believe, is also on your website.
Yes, yeah, that's probably on, I know it's on my website and it's probably on, my YouTube channel. I have that because when people pull up the trailer for, I think it's, a State of Horror book teaser, if they go on YouTube, and then your show is actually linked with that too, Noreen, so if they look at the
Oh,
trailer,
awesome.
they can also follow that, show too.
Okay, great. Thank you, Anita, so much for taking time out to be on my show. I really appreciate it, and all my best to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Noreen, you have a great evening,
You
and thank you all for tuning in tonight.
Thank you. Good night, Anita.
Good night.
Okay, everybody, that concludes the show tonight. Thank you so much for joining me. My next show will be on June 1st, where I have two awesome guests. And I'm really excited about the subject that I'm going to be bringing to you. So thanks so much for joining me. Please don't forget to subscribe, and please give my show a like. I'd appreciate it. And I will see you on June 1st. Thanks, everybody. Good night. Have a great week. Thank you.